You could probably use a head start.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Eric.
And I'm Ty.
And we are ShantottoCast.
Yep, we're back at it again. Unfortunately, we have a lot of exciting things to talk about today, but it is unfortunately our final episode. Eric, did you get Baldur's Gate 3?
No, did you?
Oh.
Oh, he left.
Anyway.
Wow, geez. I was just waiting for it to go on sale. Damn.
Anyway. So, limit break.
Well, actually, Ty, I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Do you like extra decks?
It depends. It depends on the flavor of extra deck.
Oh, I was expecting you to say yes so I could do my bit.
Oh, yes, I love extra decks.
I don't.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna get old fast. We better start using that sparingly.
Yeah.
Anyway, in case anybody out there didn't hear yet, this is going to be an episode about the fact that Final Fantasy has been declared to be getting an extra deck in Opus 22.
Well, more so, we're talking about the new mechanic.
Well, sure,
we're
but
going to focus on the fact
them...
that it introduces an extra deck. But, this is also, mind you, it was literally announced today.
Well, day of recording, this is probably going to go up in a couple days.
Yeah. So, to date the episode...
Still, week of.
Yeah, to date the episode, it's the 23rd of August. And I'm literally looking at the I cannot pronounce the name of this website. Siliconera. Which reminds me, I'm going to send this to you really quick.
Okay.
Just so you have it in front of you. Nope. So people have just started talking about it. Our group chat was talking about it today. It's literally fresh off the presses for us right now.
Yeah.
And we just have some thoughts about it. We don't have a script for this episode. Eric took some notes that he's going to be referring to. But otherwise, it's just going to be... We're just going to kind of go off the cuff a little bit and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, there is some speculation to be had, some opinion that's going to be thrown in here, and not a lot of concrete facts. So this is actually going to be a genuine discussion, which we don't actually do all that. We should do more of those.
Mm-hmm.
We should do more of those.
Yeah, we should just chat about stuff sometimes.
Definitely. That being said, with going off the cuff, whose cuff should we start with?
Well, I guess we should... Well, first, let's explain what an extra deck is.
Sure. That's a good idea.
In case you exclusively play Final Fantasy, or you're getting into Final Fantasy, or you've only played, like, Pokemon, or I guess technically Magic, though I'm going to get into that. An extra deck is a second deck that you kind of keep outside of the game that you usually, like, dip into for certain card effects. So the most famous example of this is Yu-Gi-Oh!, which has what used to be called the Fusion deck, now the extra deck, that it's just monsters that you can play from outside of the game, more or less. You get 15 of them, or up to 15 of them, and then you just put them over your cards, or you special summon them, like you do a bunch of fancy stuff with it. It's basically a mini arsenal that the opponent can't really interact with, and you can just play cards from, if you meet their conditions.
Yep.
So whenever we refer to an extra deck, we're mainly talking about like an extra deck outside of the game that you could play cards from under certain circumstances.
Yeah, and there are multiple different variations of games implementing this, but the way Ty described it is probably the most comprehensive and vague, which is how we want to keep it, because the concept is implemented so differently in so many games that there is no one way that everybody thinks of.
Yeah.
when they think extra deck.
Yeah, because Yu-Gi-Oh is both the most famous and most infamous example of an extra deck,
Definitely.
where the game has become like so warped around it that you can't play without it.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, yeah, we should. Do you feel like sharing your thoughts first, Ty? Should I? You said you're okay with extra decks generally.
Yeah,
and it can depend.
I'm a bit.
I don't like them really.
I'm a bit more optimistic about it, so I'll
Yeah.
start. Which is funny because usually you're the one that's more optimistic about something. I mean, you
That's fair.
You're the one who wants equipment in the game, which
I do.
I'm still like vehemently against. Anyway, that's a whole other discussion. But
We'll get there.
yeah, so Square Enix announced today that in Opus 22, also known as Hidden Hope, it'll introduce the Limit Break system, which allows players to use cards outside of the traditional deck. Is like the exact wording. And that's very vague and that's very scary. But I'm excited to kind of see what happens. So, we've talked about it on the show before, but you and I both kind of started on Yu-Gi-Oh!
True.
And
It's okay. We're better people now.
Yeah, we got better. Don't worry.
We got better.
But the whole thing about like the extra deck is it's kind of fun to kind of have. I hate having to like carry extra cards along with me. Like I will admit that that's something I'm really not looking forward to. But when you look at how it's implemented into the game side, like I'm gonna hop off of Yu-Gi-Oh for a minute and talk about Shadowverse, which I've been playing a bit recently. The way that they do it in Shadowverse is that you have an Evolve deck, which is 10 cards. It has to be 10 cards. And they're cards that like don't exist independently. Like you need to have the matching card in your deck for you to evolve. And personally, I think it's implemented like wonderfully. Like it kind of adds this extra dimension to some cards where some cards don't seem very good, but their evolution card's really good, or the main card's good and the evolution card's kind of icing. So it's like, well, it adds just another factor to deck building of just like, well, I have these 10 Evolve deck slots. I should probably use them, but what should I use them on? What should I like pick out of this? And in that way, I do really enjoy it. It kind of adds this extra layer of strategy to deck building, and even like when you're playing against someone, it's just like, well, what are they running in their extra deck? Like, what might I be looking at? Like, what Evolve cards are they going to be running? And for Limit Break, we don't know if that's going to be public knowledge. We don't know if you're going to see your opponent's Limit Break deck. We don't even know if like you're allowed to know if the opponent has a Limit Break deck. We don't know if there's any limits on it. We don't know if you'll only get one, if it'll act like a commander, if it'll act like a companion, which I'll get into. But the idea of just kind of having a card that could turn into another card or Limit Break into another card, which is how I'm assuming this is going to go. I like it flavorfully. I think it'll be interesting. I have my reservations about it, but overall I'm kind of excited for it. I'm excited to kind of see how they balance this and how, like, I want to see if the Limit Break cards are just like crazy.
So I mean that's the thing is I'm speculating a lot, and our chat has been speculating a lot. I actually also came up with an idea while you were talking. That I'll bring up when we get to our speculation phase of what this is, but let's I guess I feel like leaning into the why we do and don't like extra decks discussion, because the speculation can last forever, but this is kind of a finite point to make.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've ever really talked about it all that much anyway.
No,
so,
not even like real life. We haven't talked about it much.
Might as well find a reason to stay friends or chop it off here, So I'll go first with this one. As I've said, I do not like extra decks. Particularly my reasons for that are that in a lot of games, when you're a new player getting in, you try to learn all the rules, mechanics, and all the kind of minutia of how the game is played. You try to get all your cards, and you build a deck, whether it's one you came up with yourself or one that you've net decked or borrowed from somebody else, whatever. And if you have an extra deck, not only does it add an extra barrier of entry because of rules, it adds a barrier of entry because of pricing. Usually those kinds of cards tend to be like better than other cards, or more scarce, or just generally more valuable because everybody needs them. And they're usually they're universally applicable. Like Firewall Dragon in Yu-Gi-Oh! That card was $110 at its peak. Until it got banned, and then it went from $100 to $1.
Do I remember that? It was
good
right
memories,
before I
man.
stopped playing.
Yep, same. And like, if in a lot of games, it can also break the balance. There's games where it can make your deck way too consistent, or the interaction that you have with the game because of that deck, things become too consistent, or just generally too overpowered because the company making the game doesn't really think about balance as much. Because like, well, we can break, if everything's broken, nothing's broken. And I feel like in Final Fantasy in particular, part of the reason I don't want anything that is similar to an extra deck is because I still think there's design space available to explore a lot of other things. Like Ty mentioned, I want equipment. I've thought about things like materia or dual character cards, which we've actually gotten hints of already. Actually,
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't even like so much a like. If that wasn't I'm trying to find a proper way of saying it. If they didn't introduce that as a new mechanic, but just as like a cute little set thing of just like, oh yeah, we have dual characters now. Because I think...
Yeah, that would be nice.
I want to say in one of the anniversary sets, I think we're getting a dual character card, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's Lightning and Snow.
Yeah. Oh, we also got a Tita and Eunice. Or Tita...
Tita and Eunice.
Yuna and Titas.
I'm going to call Yuna that from now. I'm just going to call her Eunice.
Or Tita. Eunice. All right.
Oh, man.
But
I'm not even cutting it out for a blooper.
Oh, no.
That's great.
No, keep it in 100%. But I...
The other thing about it is that, like, I think crystals, and more so crystals than multicolor, have a lot of space to be explored yet. And the other major reason that I don't want an extra deck, and this is me just being a crotchety jerk about it, is that with Final Fantasy, one of the things that I enjoyed most about the game is I could show up with my 50 cards and nothing else. My opponent can show up with 50 cards and nothing else, and then we play, and that's it. We've played each other.
Yeah.
It is exclusively down to our skill and our deck, and that's it.
Yeah.
An extra deck adds more stuff I've got to carry with me, more stuff that a new player has to understand when they're getting in, and it adds layers of complexity to rulings and a whole bunch of other things that make it much more difficult and frustrating for people on the low to moderate end of gameplay to enjoy the game. If you're a higher level player, I'm sure it's going to be there's either going to be the fact that it breaks the game entirely, or it makes the game even more fun. That's to be determined. But that's pretty much the broad part of that's the broad end of all my opinions.
Yeah.
I don't really have specific examples of anything. I will admit that Force of Will does have a pretty good system for a side deck because it's only your like mana deck basically, and you reveal one every turn and play it, which I think is pretty healthy. That's pretty okay. And that is probably because it's a neutral thing. Everybody gets to do it at all times. So, yeah. Go ahead and share your thoughts, Ty.
Yeah. Actually, I want to hop off two of your points. So the first one was you just want to bring your deck places.
Yeah.
So Kohdok has a really good video. He does a lot of stuff about trading card games. He's talked about Final Fantasy just kind of briefly. He hasn't really dived into it, at least as far as.
But I do like his videos.
Yeah. Oh, I love his videos. It's been a while since I watched some of his stuff, but I love the Seven Sin series. In it, he mentions like a big thing about your game if you're making a trading card game, you want your players, the things that your players should have to bring is their deck, some dice, and maybe some paper. And that's it. And I 100% agree with that. Like, that was one thing that I did dread about playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And especially when where cards were placed on the field mattered, is just like you had to keep your deck, your extra deck, your side deck. You had to keep your field center later. You needed to make sure that your playmat had field zones to make sure that like it was clear where everything was. Like, that was really annoying. And I just want to play with just like a dumb mat. I want to put my cards wherever I want. Like, I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think about like what my card's next to or whatever. And I also don't want to think about what's under my card. I just want to play my cards.
Yeah.
So I 100% agree with you on that, where it is kind of annoying that it's just like, oh, it's another thing I have to bring with me. And compared to Yu-Gi-Oh!, it's not that bad. And compared to games like Shadowverse and even Force of Will, it's not super bad. Especially because Force of Will, you have to bring your commander, more or less, or your J-Ruler, and your Mana Stone deck. But so them introducing the limit break, I definitely see where you're coming from, where it's just kind of annoying to bring with. But I guess we'll just have to see when it comes to the size. Because the thing is, if it's just like a commander card where you get like one, like count me in.
If it's a leader type card or whatever, then that's probably okay.
Yeah, count me in. That'd be awesome. Like, that'd be perfect. I don't think that's what it'll be. And then the other thing that you talked about and you focused on is it's harder for newer players to learn. And that's another thing I just kind of agree with. Because Yu-Gi-Oh! Has gotten to this point where it's, in my opinion, I'm a bit of a Yu-Gi boomer, but the game's like almost unapproachable by new players because you play Master Duel and it shows you like, here's how you normal summon, here's how you attack, here's how you tribute summon. And it's like, oh, I'm going to use those like once per duel. You need to teach me how to link ladder. You need to teach me how to do like proper synchro stuff. You have to teach me like what are the good Xyz cards. Like or you have to teach me the intricacies of pendulum summoning. Like, there's so much more. It's impossible to get someone into Yu-Gi-Oh! Now because you have to sit down with them for what feels like hours and just explain all these systems in the off chance that system A becomes meta, or B, they like have to experience it. Because the thing is, if they play against someone and they don't know how to like do anything about it, that person could just lie to them the entire game, or that person could even have like a misunderstanding about how pendulum works, but unless you know exactly how pendulum works, that person is just going to steal the game.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's the thing though, is I don't really count Yu-Gi-Oh! When I'm talking about a lot of modern TCGs because that game has just designed itself into such a corner.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of flaws with that design space, but we can cover that we can give our 8-hour, 9-hour dissertation on that a different time.
Yeah, but related to that, like, I'm worried about, I don't want Final Fantasy to go in the same direction, where the game has become so overcome with feature creep that it's like almost unrecognizable. It's impossible for someone to just pick up and play and learn in an afternoon.
Yeah, pretty much. Any other particular thoughts on, or I guess any responses to my other points, or do you want to like bring up your,
no.
I guess your positive points on it?
No, that's everything I could think of. I don't super mind carrying stuff around, but I see how it's annoying, and I'm worried about feature creep. I like 100% agree with you on, where I'm worried about just like it just being something harder for people to play. You also mentioned that like they might be too good, which, to be fair, I think that could happen with like every feature. Or we could get a really, really good monster that you can't really answer, or a crystal card that's like ridiculous. But I was gonna say multi-element cards that are ridiculous, but we've already seen a couple of those.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Wall?
Yeah, Wall, Sophie, Doga.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I love those cards.
Yeah, I will 100% defend Wall to my last breath. I think that card is amazing. I think it's wonderfully designed too. I love it.
I think it shouldn't draw you a card.
Probably.
That's the only thing I think is wrong with it, is it shouldn't draw you a card on play.
It probably shouldn't, but it's cool.
I love that card. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's bonkers.
Yeah, but so should we move on to the wild speculation
Yes,
segment of this?
speculation time. Let's go.
All right. Let me.
What do you have a lot of speculation on it? Because I have weird ideas.
So, I don't have too much speculation on it. For me, it's mainly just like, because my guess. So we know it's an extra deck. We know it's a card that's going to be like outside of the game, and my guess is that there's going to be like forwards in your deck that say like limit break, and then when you limit break, you take the corresponding card out of your. I assume let's call it the LB deck for now. That you take it out of your limit break deck and then put it on top, or you substitute it out or something. That's my first like thought. In my opinion, it would work like Shadowverse, where you have cards that specifically limit break into those versions of the cards.
I like the sound of that actually. I mean, granted, again, there's plenty of chance it can be broken as hell, but like that sounds like something they might do. That sounds reasonable as a speculative idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because that's how it's working in Shadowverse, and in my opinion, it just works really well in Shadowverse. Like, because you can't just evolve any card in Shadowverse. Like the card specifically has an evolve cost. It has like evolve, like it's a card that specifically needs to evolve, and because of that, like you think so much more about deck building. And when someone plays a card that can evolve, but they're out of like mana for the turn, it's one of those things that you're kind of looking at like they can evolve that next turn. Like I better get rid of that.
Yeah, that's why I actually don't think they'll go with that kind of design, is because other games do it, and they've always built off of other games' designs, but
I was gonna say they haven't exactly shied away from, I don't want to say copying's not the right word, but taking inspiration from other card games. Though Shadowverse is too new for them to do that with, honestly.
Yeah, they've probably been brewing this for a little while.
Yeah. We know they've been working on it for at least a year, probably closer to 2.
Yeah. But I think that means that there's going to be other mechanics about it. And so I actually came up with a lot of like weird, funky ideas. So my original guess, the first thing my brain jumped to when I saw the thing in chat, that with the screenshot and the card art preview and whatever, was that it's going to be something like you play, this deck. You get an extra deck or limit break deck of like 3 to 5 cards, and you get to play the cards only during a certain phase. Yeah. So this, certain cards will say you can only play this in main phase 1. You can only play this in main phase 2, whatever. And there's conditions to be met to play the card, that you have to meet before you can play it in some capacity, whether it's, you can only play this card when you have 5 backups of a certain color, or you can only play this card if you have 4 monsters, or if 3 forwards have died this turn from your side of the field, or whatever. You play it, it gives you some bonkers effect, and then you have a penalty the next turn, or the next time you try to do something. Like, for example, next time it rolls around to your turn, you only draw 1 card, or you don't draw, or you don't reactivate your backups, or you only can activate up to 1 forward maximum, or something like that.
Oh, I'm gonna interrupt you really quick. So, an old quote-unquote exploit of the old websites when they would post these things is if you click and drag the cards onto your desktop, it would show the file name. And the file name used to just say, like, it used to say card name rarity. So it'd be like Oron H, etc. So they've since fixed that, but it still has the card name. So one of the theories that I had, and you might have had too, was that this is like a combined card, similar to like an Xyz monster from Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you needed to have Zac and Aerith on the field to play this.
Right.
Dragging and dropping the card says that the name of the card is just Zac. It's not like Zac Aerith or anything. It's just Zac.
It's just Zac.
It's just Zac.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, something worth bringing up potentially. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. And some of the penalties I thought of were kind of stuff I already mentioned, like draw 1 less card, or don't activate certain kinds of characters, or you can't cast summons. Maybe skip your main phase 2. All your forwards break after they attack or something. Some really heinous, dangerous thing, because think about it, you're breaking the limit, right? In Final Fantasy VII, there's no penalty for it. In other Final Fantasies, it does kind of like sometimes have a negative effect on your characters. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Depends, right? Every game does it a little differently in the series. But the more I thought about it, the more I wondered if it was something like it allows you to change the rules of the game in your favor for a turn. Like maybe one of the limit break cards is going to be play this card onto your field as a backup. You may have 6 backups for as long as this is on the field. And then you can break it to do something.
We finally get to use the 5 or more backups cards.
Exactly. It might be a leader. It might be a once per game thing. I'd almost wonder if it, regardless of how many limit break cards you get in the extra deck, you can only use 1. I wonder if they'll do something like that.
Yeah. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'm going to gush about how much I like that idea.
Okay.
Unless you want me to just do that right now.
I was gonna say the only other thing is that what happens after you use the card. Does it like RFG immediately? Does it go back to the extra deck? Does it go to like a leader zone? Like what depends on what we get, right? What the mechanic is.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be one of those things where you use it, then it gets RFG'd. So yeah, that's pretty much all the broad speculating I can do. Like once we start going off each other's ideas, once we start riffing, I'm sure we'll bounce off each other, but go ahead.
Specifically on that last point that you had where you think the card just gets RFG'd. So what they do in Shadowverse is when an evolved card dies, it doesn't go to grave. It flips to the top of your extra deck, similar to like Pendulum Monsters from Pendulum Summoning.
Yeah.
But if it's flipped, you can't use it. You could run more than one in the deck, in the evolved deck, but the thing is you can't use that one again.
I mean, that makes sense if you've... Well, yeah, because otherwise you could just spam the same thing back from grave and then keep evolving it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it adds just another layer of public knowledge to both players of just like, oh, like I killed that, I know 1 is gone, or I killed 3 of them. It's like, oh, I know 3 are gone. That means that there's no more.
Yep.
And I can't help but wonder if this is going to be kind of similar to that idea. But yeah, no, I'm not too sure about like kind of the rules changing thing, but my guess. See, I actually just thought of this while you were talking about this. Do you remember the team up cards from the chapters?
Yeah. I was actually just looking at those earlier today.
Yeah, because something I noticed about the limit break card is it still has the cost.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because why would a limit break card have a cost? If it's just like, oh, RFG a Zac and an Aerith and play this card, or if you just layer it on top of a card, like why would it still have a cost?
That makes me wonder. So when you said that, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
What if it's a card type that can go either into a regular deck that you play for a cost, or it's the extra deck, limit break deck, whatever, and you do an alternate cost for when you play it from there?
Maybe, because my guess is that it's going to have... So, hopping off of the chapter's idea, my guess is it's going to be in the extra deck. It's going to have some, like, ridiculously high cost. And then the cost gets reduced by, like, RFGing the character from your break zone or something. Because how the Cloud in Red 13, from memory, worked is that I think it cost 8. And then for every Cloud in Red 13 that you remove from your break zone before you cast it, it costs, like, 2 less.
I think it was 1 less, but yeah, same idea, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's my guess at least. Because like, for example, like this is Zac. Like, so I have to come up with like some ridiculous Zac card, right? So let's say he's like a 10 cost forward that's in your LB deck. He's Zac. And he just has like, when you cast this card, you could remove 1 category 7 character or forward from your break zone to reduce the cost of this cast by 1. You have to remove a Zac to cast this card. And then ETB deal all forwards 10k, except for category 7 forwards. Like, it's... I think that they're going to be like
I would
big,
imagine
impactful cards, but I'm trying to figure out how you play them.
I would imagine with an effect like, if we're going to go literal, right? If I'm going to go literal and bounce exactly off that idea, I'd imagine that they would require you to remove different characters from the game. So it can't just be like, oh, here's 5 Clouds and 5 Aeriths. You'd have to remove a Zack, a Cloud, Jesse, Biggs, Wedge, Barrett, Tifa, Aerith, Sephiroth, like, and you just keep going on the list of 7 characters, right? You can go to like Sid, you can go to Remnants, and you just go all the way down until you get down to, can't cost 0 or whatever, so you just remove nine characters, cast it for 1, but they have to be uniquely named characters RFG'd.
Yeah, that would actually be cool, because that would be like a whole other level of deck building of just like, do I run suboptimal 7 category cards just so I could exile them to my LB?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm actually like really excited about. I'm just excited to figure, like, this is the thing that I hate about this, is that like we just don't know how it works yet. And we're not going to know how it works, I assume, for a little bit, unless someone like literally just hops onto the page tomorrow and is just like, oh hey, here's a little press that here's something Kageyama talked about.
And this recording will have been for nothing.
Yeah, it'll be for absolutely nothing. But it'll be a fun time capsule for someone to go back to and just be like, look at these idiots guessing how this works. Or we could we could just hit the nail on the head. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
And they'll just be like, oh wow.
Hey, look, I've been right before. You've been right before. Our chat's been right before. It just depends. Time capsule point made. I would love to look back at this once we get this card and see who had ideas closer to the final point. Yeah.
But like, I'm trying to think of just like other ways that you would play this card. Maybe it would just So I think my 2 main ideas is that it exists outside of the game. You get a small like extra deck of like, let's say 10 cards. 10 sounds reasonable. And they have like interesting and weird casting costs, but when you play them, they're really good. Or maybe you just layer them. Because the thing is, a limit break... Okay, let's take a step back. What does a limit break in a Final Fantasy game do? Right?
I mean, depending on the game, right, it can be something like, oh, you just get this new special amazing type of attack every so many turns, or after you've taken this much damage, or whatever. But we already have damage mechanics in the game, so that's not really something they would probably do with it.
Yeah, because if you look at, like... let's see. One of the first games that Limit Break was in was Final Fantasy VI, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure.
I was about to say 6, so I'm pretty sure you're right.
It was 6. So, and how that worked is it just changed depending on the character, because Terra would go into trance. Characters would get like a cool special attack to do. And then looking towards Final Fantasy VII, it was like one big attack, right? And the attack would kind of change, or it would be slightly different. Tifa had the slots. Cloud had, just... What did Cloud have? Did you just mash with Cloud? I forget. But... Cloud
was usually mashing or a basic button combo, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So, like, that's the thing is, like, so every character had these, like, limit breaks that it was just basically, like, a big attack that did a lot of damage, with the exception of Aerith, who had, like, a big heal. Let's go from 7 into... I admit I don't know much about 8. I haven't played much of it. 9 kind of goes back to the trance idea, where a character just gets stronger for a while, and then also gets like access to a cool ability. 10 was a mini game.
10 had you had the like sort of DDR type like button inputs and timing challenge.
8 also had that. That's where because I remember all of them are like kind of a callback in a weird way.
Gotcha.
And then I can't refer to 11, and I can't refer to 12. I don't remember if 12 even had limit breaks.
12, I actually don't remember if it had anything like that. I mean, generally speaking, everybody just got more powerful, and the game was very different from a lot of previous Final Fantasies, being real-time combat and all that.
Yeah, and then moving over to 13. 13 had Gestalt mode, not so much limit break.
Well, that was your summon, though.
Yeah. Was there limit
Gestalt was your summon doing stuff. 13 didn't really have that.
Yeah, I think the closest 13 was Gestalt mode.
Yeah, but you had to go into your summon for that. It was a anytime accessible activated thing with a separate resource bar and like.
Yeah. Well,
13 is an exception.
Most limit breaks were a separate resource bar. But
it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, because that's how. Because I remember when 13 came out, people kept calling them limit breaks, so everyone's just like, "Oh, it's a limit break."
Yeah, that's fair.
And then you take hopping over to 14, which is a big reason I'm looking forward to this, because I would love to see limit break 14 cards. is when you go through dungeons and boss fights, you have a little meter that as your team does stuff, it like slowly fills. And then one person in the party can use a limit break depending on how many bars you have filled up. So like a 3-bar limit break, if you're a DPS, will do like a lot of damage, or if you're a ranged DPS, will do a lot of damage to a big area. If you're a healer, it like revives everybody and also like heals everyone. Tank is like everyone's immune to damage for 5 seconds. So I like to imagine like kind of what we'll be able to do with that. Because to see like Y'shtola use Meteor or like whatever the Black Mage limit break is would be really, really cool, where like we just have a Y'shtola that just becomes a board wipe. A limit break board wipe, or a Grahatia that like lets you summon something straight from the deck or something like that. Like I can imagine, especially with like limit breaks, there's going to be a lot of interesting lore and flavor. And not to spoil anything, but in Shadowbringers, there's a boss that uses a limit break on you, and I would kill to see that in card form. I would absolutely kill to see that in card form. It'd be awesome.
Nice. That'd be insane. I almost wonder if we'll get something that is character based. So like we know Zack is on the card, and the card's name is Zack. What if it is one of Zack's limit break effects, and it's like, oh yeah, if you control Zack, or one of these 3 Zacks, you can do this effect, and then you have to do this thing, and then like let's say, oh, it deals all of your opponent's forwards 10k, and then your Zack and Cloud get haste.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the turn, break them.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
It's almost like a spell.
Yeah.
It's almost like a summon or like a sorcery that is just a one-time use effect, and you have to have the character to do it. And like, oh, when you're using it, it's immune from summons or whatever.
Yeah, that would actually be really interesting, especially if like the Zack specifically said like, oh, like target 1 5 cost or more Zack, like put it into the break zone to play this card, or like pay 5, put that Zack into the break zone, play this card, or like exile it, play this card. That'd be really cool.
There's a lot of potential.
Yeah, I'm also just looking at the card to see if I could find any hints, because obviously it's a forward. Like we can tell from the frame that it's a forward.
The other thing too is that where's the art? Where's the card art?
So the card will, from my guess, is that the card will never be in your hand, or it can never be in your hand.
Yeah, I don't think it can go to your hand either. Don't forget though, this is art from Advent Children.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder. I don't know if the art is relevant. There hasn't seemed to be a pattern so far in FFTCG related to that. But I wonder if this is going to be related to the fact that like, oh, by the way, spoilers, I guess Zack is dead. I wonder if it's gonna be related to that, of like, sacrifices Zack, deal your opponent a point of damage, and bring Cloud on the field or something.
Yeah, or it could even have like a specific thing where it's like, oh, you can only play this if a Zack was broken last turn, or like you have to break a Zack just to play this.
Yeah, you kill your own Zack to be able to use the limit break or something.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot to speculate on with that, because the art may or may not imply something. We don't know. That being said, I do actually really enjoy the ornamental framing of the title of the card.
So
I think that's great.
I've been pretty vocal about how much I love the boss tech frames.
Yeah.
And
100%.
This is the closest we've gotten to one, and I adore it. Like you see the little, it almost, This is me just being like, oh, that's funny. Someone just logged into Final Fantasy VII on Steam. Something I'm noticing, this is wild speculation, and if I end up being right on this, then I'm gonna go out and buy a lottery ticket. On the left side of the name frame, it kind of looks like a phoenix down.
Left side, you said?
Yeah, left side by the crystal. That kind of feathery texture in the top left. Reminds me of a phoenix down.
A little bit. I can see where you're coming from, but the picture is too blurry. It's too small. It's too low res.
Oh, one sec. I'll send you the JP article. There's a high res version.
Oh,
of the
there
image.
is? Okay, cool. Oh, yeah, it's like, because chat, someone posted the low res one. So let me see this.
Yeah.
This business here. I want to see this in all of its glory. Yes, it's okay, Windows, or it's okay, Firefox. We are going to the HTTP site. It's okay.
But it's not secure, Eric. It's not secure. That's what they taught me in cybersecurity.
Apparently not. You know what? Firefox is really mad about it. I'm just going to open this in a different browser. Yeah, translate. Sure, why not? Translate this image for me. This textless image. Yeah, I can actually see. Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with that. Oh my god, that background effect on the name, like on the name slot too.
Oh, I was looking at that
Oh,
too.
it's beautiful.
And then we can also see how like the card frame around the text box is slightly different too. Like obviously
it's
all
so much
gold,
more
but
detailed.
Yeah, it almost looks like strands of hair in a weird way. Like the one thing that I'm really focusing on, and like this isn't. The frame around the LB specifically, it looks familiar, but I can't place it.
It's that actually looks like it was from Chapters.
Yeah.
Because in Chapters, I think some of the party attack cards had that.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong. There was a type of card that had a similar type of framing, not exactly the same, but it looks similar. Oh, okay. I was wondering what this little blue thing was in the corner, and it's actually just the overlay the website puts over it here. So if I do that. Okay, cool. Yeah, this oh, but you know what? Another thing I noticed about this card is that the name, the background of the name box looks almost like the it looks like it's part of the holodeck in Crisis Core that everyone uses to train, which I don't think implies anything, but I just think that's a neat little detail.
Yeah.
And if it does mean something, then I don't even know where to begin with what it would mean.
Yeah,
But I also noticed there is no power on the card. I don't know. I mean, there's the space for it, but it doesn't look like there's power.
That's just for the thing, because we see on that same page we see the other.
Yeah, there's a lot of other stuff.
The sample Squall, the sample Gilgamesh, they're all forwards, but they don't have printed power.
That's true. Oh, actually, yeah, that's a good point.
That's something that they've always done for samples.
Yeah, I always forget that when I see those.
As someone who pores over samples whenever we get them.
I usually at least take a peek, but I don't sit there and analyze them too hard.
Which reminds me, I don't know who this character is. Oh, Vossler. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say from bottom left and Earth for 12. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other character, or the water character, is Folka, who I don't recognize outside of the mono art.
Yep.
But yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much all the speculation capability I have with this one. There's a lot of, unless I get more ideas or something. There's so many directions they could take it.
Yeah,
but we don't know.
So my theory, this is the one that I'm going to pose, right? So this is
final answer.
Ty's final answer towards Limit Break. So my guess, we're going to get a Limit Break deck that can be up to. I'm rubbing my temples. I'm trying to peer into the future. We're going to be able to get a Limit Break deck that's 10 cards.
Yep. It seems like a lot to me.
Yeah, it does. But so it's going to be 10 cards. You could have up to 3 copies of any card. The cards will be able to, or the cards will have to interact with a card of the same name. So you'll have to sacrifice a card of the same name or exile a card of the same name to play it. So this Zac, for example, would be you have to target one I think it's going to be specific. I think it's going to say like you have to target one fire Zac on your field, exile it. And then you also have to pay the additional cost of the card. And I think they're going to be really strong. I think they're going to be really good. That one's kind of a gimme, in my opinion. If they're introducing a whole mechanic, at least one of the cards is going to be good. But I think depending on the deck, you won't need to. And I also think it will have to be public knowledge that you're running an extra deck or a limit break deck, but you don't have to let the opponent know you're running limit breaks. Or rather, they don't know exactly which limit breaks you're running. They just get to know that you're running a limit break deck.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to how Companion works in Magic, where you don't get to look at someone's sideboard, but a person has to say, hey, I'm running this Companion.
Yeah, I can see that being the case. I think it combines a lot of our ideas that we've posited tonight. I'm being my usual indecisive self because I can see too many things being realistic and I can't pin down which ones I think are the most likely. So I'm just going to say that I will stand behind all and any of my predictions from tonight, and we will see what happens, and we can look back and laugh at who was wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can laugh at
I applaud your ability to commit to one thing that we know nothing about.
Yeah, because the way that I look at it is I either got this completely wrong, and I kind of look back at it and I get to say like, oh, okay, I kind of see where I was coming from with that, or like, it's kind of silly to think that now, or like, I think I get where I was coming from, or I was 100% on the money and I'm just like, Tyler is the most smart, most handsome man alive, and he guessed all of this perfectly. Hire me, Kageyama-sama.
You know where they're going before they know where they're going. Turns out they're actually watching our videos and looking for ideas from all the content creators out there. And they're just like, hey guys, we actually need ideas for this new mechanic. Please help.
They just did a mock up and just posted about it and was just like, all right, now we got to watch them speculate and steal some ideas.
Yeah, right. It's 100% like a
40
chess move.
I swear to God, there's people who think that that's how it works. That legit, they're watching people post like their custom cards, and they're just like, we got to steal that. It's like, no.
I mean, I'm sure once in a while they get a good idea from it, and then they tweak it and whatever. But like, that's not their design principle or like methodology of. Yeah, let's just crowdsource it, steal from the community. Let's just get what do they want, you know? Like, let's just ask Reddit what they want in the game and then do it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that'd be so
looking
funny.
at you, high res. Oh man.
That's the end of my speculation. That's everything I had ready.
Yeah, I've exhausted my well of ideas.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, that sounds like we actually dumped a lot of ideas out there.
Yeah, and I didn't even go into like Magic the Gathering and stuff.
True,
and I don't
you
even
actually
need
told
to.
me about it beforehand. Yeah.
Honestly,
I
I
kind of
don't think
went
I need
into
to.
it later.
That could be like a whole other discussion. I have a feeling Karn the Great Creator is going to come up in one of our episodes eventually. But
yeah, keep a pin in that one for a later discussion on this if we end up having more things to talk about with the Limit Break deck.
Yeah.
But for now, this has been our kind of quick emergency release of hey guys, like newsflash kind of situation.
Yep.
Very off the cuff and unusual for us, but you know what? I like doing this kind of thing, so maybe we'll do it more.
Yeah, and unlike our handful of times we tried to do our big Yu-Gi-Oh episode, this one has stayed under 4 hours. So
actually, it stayed under an hour.
Yeah, we're coming up on 50 minutes.
It'll be more like 45, 47 once we're done editing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, all right. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep, and we will catch you guys next time, probably with a more structured episode. Yep. So stick around for that.
Bye.